Hey everyone, Sydney here, and I'm excited to get talking with you about adding low and no code tools to your tech stack. All right. First, I want to talk about the difference between no and low code and how to apply these things as a developer. So, no code is the approach to designing and using softwares that don't require any coding, usually on your behalf, or knowledge of programming languages. And I want to caveat this with what I've learned from doing no code. And that's, I think having familiarity with programming languages helps understand your capabilities of how far the no code can go. And it depends on where you want to put the no code at. Like, is this need to be a no code mobile app, no code web app? Is this no code dark web app? Having those information about, okay, what's behind the no code really lets you know what are the opportunities. And I say this because you have softwares like Adalo, Nixcode, the software that I've developed, Glide, Squarespace, or Bubble. These are all no code required, but the way that they've been built really limits how they can be put onto the market. So what I mean by that is Adalo is a no code platform built similar to the same infrastructure Nixcode uses. And by knowing that, we know that we build React Native for mobile apps, which means it qualifies to be on Android and iOS app stores. And by having a little background knowledge, what that tells us is one, Android apps are built with, Java, and then you have Apple apps built with, Swift or Objective-C. And by doing React Native and using JavaScript, it's been able to be transformed to different environments. And that's why they can publish on the app stores, although they're not done in the native programming language. And then you have apps like Glide and Bubble, which are, again, no-code app builders, but they actually do not qualify to be built onto the app stores because of the infrastructure which they're built upon. So Glide is just dark web apps. Bubble is just web apps. So it means you just use the domain to access it. They do not qualify to be on Apple or Google. Glide is dark web. And what that means is there's no public domain. You actually have an internal domain. These are people who like to build like company apps or things like that to be shared and then installed on the phone. Of course, Squarespace is completely like website based. So just knowing a little bit about the infrastructure and the background of a little bit of development as developers is really high level knowledge, nothing technical, deep like that, but having that information lets you know, okay, what is my objective to create here? An app, a website, a web-based app. Some of them are hybrid. Some of them can do all three. You could then inform yourself, okay, this is the platform that I need to use. Now, when it comes to building a no code, what's required, and this is something that I think is misconstrued about no code and how easy it is. And yes, although it's no coding involved, there's still a hurdle there, and that's logic and visual based programming. And the reason why people still can struggle with no code is because their minds struggle around logical program based thinking. What I mean by that is, in school, we used to do like if and then statements, cause and react. So if I do this, then do that. Input equals output. And some people struggle with that. They struggle with, okay, well, I know what I want, but what inputs do I need to make that happen? And that sometimes can be a struggle, especially when you're creating a brand new idea. And as developers, usually that's our strong suit, that we have great logical thinking. We may not have done the schooling to go deep into coding, but I do have the logical sense to understand what inputs I need to get a result. And that's required for no code and low code, or any code really. But for no code, that's a skill set you have to strengthen, is your logical based thinking. Zapier itself, which is a no code automation tool, is complete logic. That's all. You're just creating logic statements. You see what I'm saying? Any type of forms, and we're going to go through a few of those tools today in our demo, but it is heavily logic. So the better you strengthen your logic and inform yourself of these different tools and opportunities out there, you can say, hey, I can piece these things as inputs, and then I can do some sort of workflow or data syncing to send out outputs for results. So that's something to consider when you're looking to become a no-code developer or a developer who wants to leverage no-code. So then what's a low code? And I have my personal definition, and I'm gonna give you the kind of standard definition. Um, Low code is a development approach that requires little to no coding with applications and softwares and processes. So now, to me, this could be things like Wix, WordPress, Bubble, and Weebly. And you notice I have Bubble in two components. I say this because Bubble's tool is good because there's a lot of templates. Like, you really could go away with no code, but as soon as you need to customize and tweak, or let's say you got a template from a developer who did not clear all the bugs, you're still left to like fix bugs and do like these short code statements and a lot of logical put togethers. It can kind of require just a little bit of code, not like programming languages, but just simple web-based coding of using short codes and a couple statements and like matching databases. It can get technical really quick when it comes to having to fix a bug or trying to build a custom feature. In WordPress, again, it's like you get so far with no code, and then like to personalize it and to take that next step or make it do what you want it to do that may be different outside like a template or what you've started with, you're going to need to learn a little bit something. Even if it's inputting short codes, if it's just tweaking a little bit in the HTML or CSS, that is essentially, it's getting you almost, if not 70 to 80% of the way there, and you're reliable for the next 10 to 20% of that. And so when I say low code too, I think basic languages, the same programming languages we used to build our MySpace pages back in the day. We didn't even know we were coding back then, but that's how low code it is. It's just some simple HTML, CSS, and some really light JavaScript to the point where you didn't even know you were probably writing JavaScript. I think just some basic principles around those three languages can make you a powerful developer and a powerful no code, low code developer. So what's really great for this, as you're trying to think about your path and career choice or entrepreneurship as a developer, is gaining some knowledge and understanding of at least at minimum the basics of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript means I can work with no code, low code, and I have the ability to tweak that 10 to 20% of what I need to customize and develop on for either your client, a project, or things like that. And then when you get ready to start your career, your entrepreneurship, whatever your goals are, no low code can help you achieve three things: freelancing projects. So if you're looking to be someone's developer or do like freelance work, you can put yourself out there as a no low code expert. And we're going to talk about, why this is important, but it really allows you to start freelancing projects. Upwork, there's been quite a bit of people who are trying to get help with no code, their no code projects. And again, they need help because they lack that logical approach. So they still need someone who has the developer mindset of thinking to get it done. And then we have building MVPs. This is really great for people who are just trying to get their product out there, just a very validated first draft. And that's really a niche too. And I always recommend going no and low code in your first build and your MVP for validation, testing. You don't want to put a bunch of money in customization for something that hasn't been validated yet. So you can actually find yourself as a niche developer in helping people build rapid no-code MVPs through all the platform options that we discussed: Dalo, Nixcode, Glide, Bubble, and more. And then if you are a developer and your languages are far more advanced than HTML, CSS, or JavaScript, or you do have a development background, I find that you could supplement the development scope with no-code solutions. So you could say, you work with a client or a project, and maybe you're on budget or time constraint. You can make the decision, say, these features, we're going to do it by custom, we're going to use it with code, but these kind of low-level things are maybe not a use of time, or they're going to be what really drives the budget over the top. Let's supplement this piece of it with a no-code tool. So you can always use a combination. And I've had people actually use no code and still build code at the same time, because it reduces time, it will save cost on budget. And if you feel like it's something that you shouldn't have to rework in your development process, maybe just supplementing that piece of your project or idea with a no code tool will be best fit. So I want to talk about a little bit in this industry and why it matters. So no code is a future. When I say this, meaning more companies and enterprises are actually themselves moving to no code. And over time, enterprise and companies have been the first to actually do no code, and startups are just now catching the bandwagon. So it's now trending where more startups are getting into it with the 40% demand, where over years, enterprise and companies have been leading no code. Even our biggest brands, even Apple or Amazon, they're getting into no code solutions as well and helping people empower with no code. And when I want you to think no code, like really think like Canva, they said, hey, people struggle with using Adobe's products and all these fancy brushes and technical terms for designing. Let's just create a platform that people create design graphics without any complication to needing to be an actual designer, right? To a point where now corporate companies have said that's a great idea. We don't need designers now. We can just have every employee have the empowerment to create their own, creative assets for the company's materials or things like that. That's just the way companies, brands, and industry is trending. So even if your career goal is entrepreneurship or to be actually like in a corporate environment, there's still power in being familiar with no code and no code tools, because the perk of that is that means other people who have to use your tool don't have to learn it either. You're not only empowering yourself, but you're able to empower your stakeholders and your users. And that kind of speaks to like the powerful for enterprise. So they are the largest use of no code tools, although startups are getting more familiar and hip with it. But more importantly, if you're going to be a freelancer, and even if you have a client says, hey, this is my idea, can you help me develop this? And they're going to always maybe assume, and this is standard, people say, oh, my idea is so unique and it's so complex, I know I need a developer and all these things. Not necessarily. You don't. And they don't know what they don't know, but you do. And so even if you find people are looking for a developer, always feel the confidence to go out and pitch yourself, or take the call with the client and say, hey, I can get you those same results. My approach will be different. And I think sometimes that's missing amongst development community is that some developers they just think that's what they have to do is give them code when you don't have to. People don't pitch another idea, and most founders are really open to it. And the proposition for them is, if you allow me to build your product or app with no code, what this does is set you up for success and self-sustainability. Because once I'm done or off the project, you still need to maintain it. You don't have to worry about retaining me. You don't have to worry about like, what if something happens and I change my mind or things. Like, you have the power to go in and manage your product. You have the knowledge to, you have the access to, because there's no code to read. It's drag and drop. It's clicking a button. It's just going in and editing the content, hit and save and update, right? We want to equip the end user for success and to be self-sustainable. And that's the kind of proposition you want to offer when someone's looking for a product and saying, hey, I think you should go no code based on your requirements. Here are the tools I recommend. And I can actually set this up and get this working for you. So that's kind of why you should be considering that stack. I think there's tons of opportunity. It's definitely on trend. No one wants to deal with code anymore. Now there's people who actually need code to build these tools to make them work no code, but if that's not your career choice, there's still so much market opportunity and need for no code and low code developers. So how does no code work and low code work in this space? And I want to kind of just show you a few tools that I commonly use. And I'm going to keep it from an app perspective. I feel like web-based is pretty straightforward. We're pretty familiar with what WordPress, Squarespace, Wix, we know how they work. They're pretty straightforward. So I want to get into more mobile, as that's what's trending, as we're leaning towards a more mobile first world. And I want to talk about Adalo. I love Adalo. I think the opportunity to create is great, but you'll also see as we go through some of these softwares why it requires logic. And some tools don't require so much rough logic, and why people still struggle with a no-code tool like Adalo. And then two, my platform that I developed called Nixcode, I want to walk you through an example with that too. And with that, we're going to talk about integrations of other no-code, very niche products like Video Ask and Zapier that really helps make things connect. Now, what's really important when you're evaluating your tech stack of tools is what kind of opportunities to expand are there? Because a platform could be limited and you're not going to get it all in one. I don't know anyone who does everything. At some point, you're going to bring in an API or a Zapier connection. But what's important is the platform I'm choosing to even permissible for me to do that? Majority are, but as you're evaluating the best approach, that's something to consider is like, hey, if I wanted to bring in, a tool from Zapier or a connection from Zapier or a tool using, a Typeform or a Google something, could I make that work? So just wanted to preface that as well. So let's jump right into it. I want to talk about an app I did with Adalo and just show you some of the ways it works and kind of demo that. And I'm going to monitor my time here. All right. Okay. So this is a sports app where it really mimics Instagram and TikTok, if you will. And the goal of this is to connect with athletes, coaches, and recruiters. So that was like the client's requirements. They want something like Instagram and TikTok. So I said, cool. I think something social and that needs like video and pictures. This would be a great platform for that. So one thing about Adalo is you have to start with a database. And I think this is where if I was not a logical thinker, it would not even click to me that to make things work, I got to build a database. And then what fields I need in a database. You see, that's really challenging to people who are not technical nor logical thinkers, and just like that just wouldn't click for them. But if you have that development mindset, we know usually to even create data, we got to have a data store with a database. So that's just something that it may not be transparent, but the thing is, I start with requirements, and anything as a developer, that's the first starting point is requirements. And this is also with walking people through the process. So you say, hey, my goal is for people to find athletes and recruiters and coaches. And the way to best segment the user data, help people find what they're looking for, is I may need to know what sport you are, one, and two, what school. So either college or high school. And so that's the first things I think of. Okay, well, let me create a database, right? I need a database of one, who you are, because I just told you it's for athletes, recruiters, coaches. So I'm gonna create a database record. Then I'm gonna call it the database profile type, right? And what this does is allow me to say, create a sign up form, and I can input this field that connects to the database and pull the options I have listed. So when I'm creating requirements, I'm going to first start listing off what do I want as options for people to choose from. And then that will be the database. You can only choose from things in these fields. So I could say maybe I also want to add fan, and I just save that. And then what it does is it makes that option for people to choose from. I'm going to delete this since it's duplicate on this product. But and then I'm able to still go back and look at the records and see how many users signed up as coaches, how many users signed up as athletes, things of that sort. So as I'm that full control in that analytic piece as a end user or your client, they can say, hey, I can go see users who sign up as coaches in my data, right? What also may happen is we want to create profiles for different people or user types. So this is their things in logical thinking that requires is why do I need these fields and how will they be applied throughout the app? The other one I mentioned was sports. These databases are not user generated. These are things that we pre-populated for users to select from. So I added a bunch of sports, right? And it'll let me know which users have signed up for which sports. And then I did the same thing with schools, and I'm really resourceful. So one thing with databases is I found an Excel spreadsheet online of things already, like just give me all the schools in the United States. And what's really cool is some tools that have databases will allow you to just import a CSV file. So really kind of accelerating the data upload, especially if it's a lot of options. So with this, users are able to select colleges that they went to in the United States. So those are my databases of pre-populated information. So before I can even build anything and make it do pull up anything, I have to start with my database collection. Then the next type of databases I need to collect user input, right? So I know that I got you pre-selected fields, but I need to know your name. I want your email, to set a password, set a profile picture. These things are going to be your actual inputs that users can update and create. And then also, what's about Adalo is actually building relationships. So again, when you're getting requirements and people are talking to you about their idea, your mindset as a developer start thinking of, okay, how can people find people? How can people, what kind of content are they creating? What do they do with this content? Who needs to see it? How do people need to react to it or utilize it? Like, those are the things you're listening for as a developer. And then when you hear those things, reason why you're going to have this tech stack is you're going to start evaluating and like scratching things off. Okay, Bubble wouldn't work because of this, or Nixco wouldn't work because of this. Like, so I'm going through my tech stack to really evaluate what tool will work best based on what I hear this user wants to achieve. And that's usually how I come up to what's the best platform. And sometimes I may have a few options and can mix and match a few of them. So the ones that looks like links here are the relationships. So it means users will be able to have relationships with the other type of databases like Post, because they're going to create content. So I created a post collection. I created a database collection for comments because that's how users need to react. They need to comment or like. They need to friend other users. They need to send messages. Did my messages get read? I need to have a profile type connected to that database. I selected a sport and I selected a school, things like that. It connects a relationship to the user of other collections. And then again, to tie this back around, you see why like people still need no code developers, because for someone, again, with no background in like tech or logical based skill set, this could be a struggle. And if you're a developer who maybe don't have the tech background, but you're good at logical thinking, like that's still a strong suit. Like you could figure some shit out. Like you can do inputs and outputs like nobody's business, then you would win at this. Or that just tells you, hey, these are platforms I need to start getting familiar with and start practicing. Some people can jump in and start building immediately. Sometimes just read forums to kind of work your way through troubleshooting what you don't know. And I think finding the examples, what I've done is done templates. So most app platforms have a template to start with. I'll just look at a finished template and I'll look at how they achieve that. I'll go look at the collections. I'll look at the databases, look at the screens and say, oh, okay, this is how they made that happen. And sometimes I do that to go refer back to. So you kind of see what I'm saying about the database collections. I won't spend too much time here because we got other tools to look through. But when I start creating those screens, I then create something called forms. Forms or list. And that's where it starts pulling those different database collections. So when I create a screen, like one form will be to edit your profile, right? Like when you sign up, it's a form where you need to make changes. And then what's Adalo is pretty straightforward. It says, well, what collection should we pull the fields available from? The user form, user database. And then what I wanted to do, I want you to update the logged in user. And then what it does is it gives you all the fields that were available from that database collection that we set up. And you don't have to use them all in there. I just choose which ones I want there. And that's it. At the time of the collection, I've set up what kind of field it is, text, yes or no, or an image or a file, things like that. If it was a relationship, like the profile type, basically it'll now select from that database of options. So that's one of the things too that's important is when I've preset my collection for a bunch of fields, I'm able to then put that into the forms and say, hey, you can go ahead and select from these database options. Like what kind of profile user are you? What state are you from? What school? What sport? So I'm not going to go too deep in that, but that is how you do forms in Adalo. But first, of course, creating your database. Then you actually have a list, which is pulling from the database. Means once I've completed a form, that's how I submit a record, right? So record into the database. You as a developer will say, okay, I need this record. When someone selects to create a post, let me see, I can blow this up just a little bit. When someone creates a post, it creates a new record under my post database. And then what that allows me to do in turn is to have a list of all the records shown from that database. So, right, so the list is going to be this database. So it's going to show you all the databases you have, and it's going to be the post database. And let's say you want to show all posts, yep. Or you can just do the login user or like post. So it gives you some filters, but you can also create different statements and relationships for what you want it to filter as. If it's like Instagram, it's like your first list of content is like only your friends. And then you go to explore page and it's everybody. So that's kind of like the difference that you can set up. And then the components. These are things that will be arranged in the list, not all of them tied to lists. These are like design elements, like have an image, adding labels, and then what do you want it to populate? So for instance, this piece is a label and its username, and then you can actually put what should it be in there. It should be the user's username, the current post, not who's logged in, but whoever posted this record. Show their username, then show their post, show the caption that they put, show the like counts, right? This is where you just start drawing and drafting out the elements and placing them. So I think that's what I also love about Bubble and Adalo is if you have someone who's super particular that you're working for, it could be a client or your job, and they're like, hey, I have a particular look in mind. I want this layout. You want to get someone who's lets you drag and drop and move things around. I will say Nix Code is very what you see is what you get. It does not let you, it customizes the design and give you layout templates. It doesn't let you just start dragging things around and place them anywhere. I find that sometimes, depending on your skill set, some people don't know where to put things. And by the time it gets in the app store, it doesn't really render look good. So I know for Nix Code, we like to keep people in certain formats that just, across all devices will just render flawlessly. And so forth. So I think one of the things that really will separate you amongst, developers in terms of opportunity and being a no and low code developer is that this is really easy for someone. Once you set up the framework for them, they can go in and manage and edit them. And I'm going to add a new field or a new sport, or let's just change this layout or screen workflow. And what's really good is you can actually click the action links of what should happen and what should information send to each screen. So I think it's that workflow, and Bubble's a workflow-based no-code tool too. It's like, what's the flow of the user's journey, screen by screen, where we're in Nix Code, I know it's more folder feature of nesting things together and more drill down. And I can show you an example of that. But that's one of the more popular tools is Adalo. It does have a Zapier connection, so you can have information, data sent to and from, and really all you can do is add records. That is a limitation of the Zapier connection. So basically, if someone, had them fill out a form using a different tool, signed up through a marketing channel, you can then actually have it create a record in one of your databases. So that's the Zapier connection. So that'd be the limitations of that. So that's something that would need to know when you're creating it. Sometimes I always encourage, when you go to Zapier, it allows you to put in the different software tools and you can see what they're capable of doing. So in advance of you actually doing all this work, you can see, okay, hey, I already know what my opportunities and limitations are. Okay, so that's Adalo. Let's get into Nix Code, and we're actually going to do a little short project for the rest of the time. So Nix Code. So this is my app. It's on the App Store. It's called For Founders, and it connects users with funding opportunities. That could be through grants, pitches, investment, or accelerator and bootcamp programs. And with this, I've been pitching for a lot of years, and I have a really great pitch record and raised over $100,000 in non-dilutive funding. So with that, I wanted to, offer templates and courses and really help people improve their pitch success while they're finding opportunities, how they pitch to actually be selected and win competitions. So with that requirement, I think, okay, what kind of experience do I want to give? What kind of tools do I need? And also just to make the experience competitive, right? We got to think about marketing positioning. And so I wanted to mention this too about being a developer, and what makes you a really great asset that I find is being knowledgeable on building competitive apps, and don't be afraid to push back. So sometimes when you're thinking on behalf of non-developer people, they're going to say, I want things like Instagram, like this app here, like Instagram and TikTok. It already exists. So I have no shame to tell people, I think this is not a very competitive idea. Some concept like this already exists. And what you have built here, there's nothing intellectual about it. There's nothing wow about it. You just took it, narrowed it down to a segment, and to really tell them about, it's going to be hard to pull people away from Instagram, these other platforms, because in TikTok, they have a user adoption that is loyal. Until you really find something that is going to break you out in that industry that's unique, or just super like, oh, this is so different, I've never experienced it, like this is solving a problem that TikTok and Instagram doesn't do for me, then maybe, yeah. So, as a developer, just don't, feel like you have to always conform to the requirements. Feel free to give creative thought. Feel free to give creative thought and saying, hey, you should find a competitive opportunity within your idea, and what is really intellectual about your idea. And I'll tell you this, when you ask that question to someone, what's the intellectual component of what we're building, that will really determine your approach for the software, and if it should be done in no and low code. I'm not saying everything should be. And I always challenge people to ask that question, because sometimes they say, I really don't have anything intellectual, and that is okay. It's totally okay. So I just want to give that little bit of advice. It's just something I think I've run into, depending on your goals as a developer, to really get people to get results. I say that to say this, that I wanted something to be cool, engaging, and different than anything else on the App Store for my target audience. And so what we're going to build here is some sort of interactive way to give people pitch feedback, right? And so a bit of the requirements that you need to consider, and this usually has to come from your client or end user, is what outputs do I want? So I'll give you an example. I want to create pitch feedback, and I'm going to ask people questions. Based on how they answer, I need to already structure outputs. This is artificial intelligence. That's what it does. It's a program is designed to give you so many outputs and answers, like Alexa or Google, things like that. Some things you can ask and they say, I don't have an answer for that, right? But they've been programmed to have so many results based on these different questions. Your end user or client has to tell you what are the options of answers. That's first. So with that, have a list of answers that, based on what you ask or provide me, I should match you to the right result. Or maybe I have no results, but we're going to try to make it so either broad and general or very niche that you should always be able to get a result. It'd be very, very, very unique to not get a result. So what am I going to use to do this? I'm going to use Zapier and Video Ask. And I decided to do Video Ask because I wanted something really cool, interactive, and challenging to my user. And I want them to get a really authentic experience. So within Nixcode, we have a marketplace called Plugins. It kind of adopts that WordPress model. And with this, it allows us to not build any workflows and no drag and drops, no databases. It's just, what tool do you want to use? Add settings, and you're good to go. And it actually really integrates and pulls things from other no-code tools. So I want to use this tool. Video Ask is a product from Typeform. And so it's here in my marketplace, which I'm going to add. And I want people to not only pitch to me, but let's say I have a partnership with a lot of other successful founders or investors. They could virtually, through not through augmented, but artificial intelligence, pitch to them and get feedback. So what I would do is have a list of questions um, that would be asked to the pitcher. And let's say I do have an investor on my app that said, hey, would you mind, based if a person gives these type of responses, what kind of answer would you give? And that would be my preset. Based on how you answer the questions the investor has, here would be his feedback for you. Right? So that's how I built my logic. And we're going to do one together. So let's say they're going to pitch to me. I'm going to title this to pitch to Sydney. So that's going to be the title of this one. And I would create this over and over. I would just do this plugin over and over for each investor that I have. So with this, now that I have the plugin in here, I'm already in Video Ask, and I set up a workflow of this experience. And I love Video Ask. It's one of my newest favorite no-code tools. I've been using it to like accelerate interviews. I think I have a couple of app people using it for therapy, using it for consultations, using it for onboarding, user sign up. It just personalized the experience so much. And so I want to get into this piece of it. So we'll just preview it here. We'll actually preview in the app, but I want to show you the kind of options into it. So the first thing what I like about it is thinking about ADA compliance. As a developer, a lot of your end users may not consider, most men are colorblind. They may not consider colors. And I get people who have these beautiful brand boards, but in a mobile space on a phone, it just does not make your text or user experience very visually appealing, considering people have handicaps visually. People have audio handicaps. People have visual handicaps. So we are also thinking about your best no-code tool. I like things that allow me to add closed captioning, to also add text, or just to have video or audio so people can hear and listen as well. So people, your end users, will count on you as a developer to think all that, because they feel like it's not my responsibility to consider all those things. You're the expert, you're the developer. You should be considering that when you pick the tool for me. So that's something to put on your developer checklist when you're looking at your tech stack is, are these going to meet my requirements? So what I like about this is I can give the option for the user to respond in open-ended ways. Either they can respond with a video back to me, or if they want to get on video, they can at least do an audio recording, or I can let them text it, like put in text. And what I liked about this, they can keep practicing before they actually say, I'm ready to submit. I love this for interviews. We love this in case people make mistakes or anything like that. But I did turn off text because I want them to get used to visually pitching. What's really cool too is when you do these videos, you can upload from template libraries from your phone or screen share. So it doesn't have to be personally. You could actually be demonstrating like a screen share of a process for somebody. And then of course you can say how long they have. So I like that. You can customize the video, the text, make sure the closed captioning. So it kind of puts it on what it thinks you're saying. And then you can edit about what it really is saying. So you can edit your closed captions. So I love that. And then of course, if there's any logic, so based on what needs to happen next, you can say, based on how they answer this question or whatever, take them to maybe this video or this question. Or maybe it's something that they didn't say. Let me take them to this next video question. So there's opportunities for advanced logic of what needs to happen in the workflow. So let's just go ahead, and I've done 3 of these videos, and I'm going to just take my link, copy it, and go back to my platform and insert it and hit validate. Now it'll render. All right, and hopefully this will allow the audio to sound, but hopefully you can hear this.
Hi, I'm Sydney, and I'm excited to hear your pitch. Go ahead and spend 2 minutes
telling me about your business. They can turn on closed captioning. So that's what they'll do.
Hi, I'm Sydney, and I'm excited to hear your pitch. Go ahead and spend 2 minutes.
Then they can reply, and of course it's going to open up in a web browser because we're on a computer. But if it was on a mobile app, you would just slide up, and then they can answer. So I will show you just a demonstration of it in the web browser. So we'll do it in preview mode. So they hear me talking, and then they will get a prompt to say, how would you like to answer? And let's say they do audio. It'll give them a prompt when they're ready to talk. And then now they have 2 minutes to start articulating their pitches. And right now the form is recording my audio. And when it gets done being submitted, the form will actually relay the audio to the form owner, which would be myself. If it was for the investor, he would be the form owner, things of that sort. And then I stop. And then the great thing is it'll let me hear it back. So I can play. And then now they have 2 minutes to start articulating their pitches. And right now the form is, and then they could choose to re-record or just send it back. What's really great is they can actually turn on notes. So let's say it was like really a pitch and I'm really creating a tool and these can be used for education. They can actually type notes and read it right off the screen while they're recording it. And you could choose to turn notes on and off, but a really great tool and really many ways to use it. And it's one of my favorite new low-code tools. And I think it can be really advanced. So anyways, it is now in the app. I'm sorry. I hope you guys make sure it was sharing. But I went ahead and recorded it and it, recorded my voice. It played the audio back to me. And what's really cool is it does have the notes feature. People can, choose not to record it, choose not to send it if they're not done. And of course it has that playback. So I'm sorry, I don't think it's shared. And what's really cool is it does have the notes feature. People can, choose not to, and then say no. And again, this was their notes where they can actually read it and still have the notes on the screen if they want to have something to read from. And again, that would be great for educational purpose and good practice tools. And of course, they can always respond with video, which you just ask to turn on the video and request permission. So I've already done 3 videos of this. I got it all set up and I have it now put into my control panel. So what I want to do now is help people find me to pitch to. So I'm gonna go back to my home screen that I created and it's going to be under feedback. Here's where I have it set up for people to give pitch feedback pitch feedback from an expert. And they can send a live pitch via video or audio. And then once their pitch is submitted, they'll get an email back with detailed feedback and suggestions. So I'm going to go ahead and add the first person, and it's going to be me. I'm going to go ahead and add myself to this. Let's see if I can just find my image quickly. I can probably let me just pick a photo. Let's just say we'll use that one. Maybe a little bit of background on what I am. And then I'm gonna probably put in just a little bit about myself so people can say, hey, is this someone that I would like their feedback from? What I like to do is, as a developer, I sometimes for MVP sake of things, I like to just add dummy text. There is this tool called Lipsum, and it basically generates dummy text for you. You get to see how many words or paragraphs you need, and I just hit generate, and I copy and paste because sometimes what I don't wait on is content, and that could be the longest thing people get to you. I said I'll put dummy text, and you can go in and add your real text when you're ready. So I just generated some dummy text, and then I'm gonna go ahead and put this in here so people know about me. And then I'm gonna add a link. What I want to do is have it connect to that plugin that I created, and the action button text should say pitch to Sydney. The title is fine, and then it'll say send pitch. Now I've customized the button what it should say. Oh, I don't think I just saved that. The settings here, you can just say instead of contact, have it say send pitch. And I forgot to save. So do that, and then I can, let's see, Sydney Davis, founder, and I'm gonna save that. And then when I go in and I add my call to action link, I can add that plugin. And what's really cool too, what I like about our platform that actually is not available in other things like Bubble or Adalo, is each feature has a link. So let's say I created a marketing campaign or a push notification, and I was promoting, hey, I have a new investor on the app or a new opportunity, like connect now. People, you can't count people to go into the app and figure out, okay, well, where is this? Where do I find it? What's really cool is we provide deep links, a deep link URL to every bit of information, be it just this whole form or to this particular person. I can create a link, and when I put in my marketing or put it into my push notification, when someone clicks on it, it'll take them exactly to what I'm talking about. They don't need to go find this pitch person under feedback from the homepage in the app. It really helps my click and engagement for my apps go really well. So that's something to consider too when you're determining what tool to use, by really understanding the customer or project's requirements, the results they want, what metrics they're using for success. These are all things to determine what tools you should put in your tech stack or what tools you should go with. So now I have this, and people can say send pitch to Sydney, and it'll open and they'll be ready to pitch to Sydney, right? So that is one feature that is really super cool, and again, we can build on workflows or things like that. But let's now finish the rest of this. Well, now that they've pitched, they completed the pitch process, submitted the form. Now I need to give them feedback. Here we are in Zapier. So the first thing I'm going to do is create Video Ask, because that's the app I want to connect, and I want to just send them an email. And I'm going to do this through Gmail because that's the email provider that I'm using. And when a new form is submitted, so from a forum person, so there's a couple options to choose from. I'm actually doing new response. So a new submission has been submitted, and then I actually want it to send an email. Okay, and that is the Zap I'm going to create. So with this, is going to say choose your account. I've already connected it, my Video Ask account. Then it's going to say your org name, which is just the ID of your account in a Video Ask, and then what kind of Video Ask form. So this is going to be when people have submitted a form to me, which I named Pitch to Me. So it'll set the trigger and test it that can it retrieve responses. Looks good. It retrieved responses and was able to get all the answers back. So now I'm ready to send an email. Now here's the cool thing about Zapier. At this point, I can choose to filter or format things. So basically, when a response come in, only do these things if this happens. So this is where I fake that artificial intelligence based on, if they respond like this, or if this filled in the response. If let's say so you can get duration, answer ID, things like that. So I want to pick the answer that they submitted. So 1.2, so this is question 1. In the second piece of the answer, I could say, hey, if they submitted this or had this submitted, what condition should I use? And if it contained these keywords, then, here are some other things I could choose from. So really, depending on the requirements, I can filter what gets them a response. If depending on how I created all the things in the Video Ask format. But let's say I'm ready to give them feedback. They answered all the questions in my videos. I'm going to be ready. I connected the Gmail account. That'll be to the app. And then who is going to be sent to? The contact email. That's the person who filled out the form. Because after the first video, it does ask them to continue on and have your pitch submitted to add your name and email to get feedback. So that was in the process. And then who should it be from? Of course, it'll come from us, that email address, but I can also add different emails or a masked email if I want to. But there's a from name. I can actually type in a text or actually pick a field. But let's say it's from me. But if it was the investor, I will pick it was from John from Venture Capital or something. Reply to, if you do want to allow replies, that's part of the requirement. Back into the subject. Your pitch feedback. And then here is where I actually can start typing the text of the results of what they should get back from. Remember that investor or myself had determined based on these responses, what I asked, here's my feedback from you. I can start pasting that body of feedback into this message. I can add attachments, so I can send back resources. I can send back templates or things of that based on what the investor or myself suggest. And these will be predetermined based, and you will get whichever ones we create. So I'll probably create a few of these scenarios based on the different questions, answers, and things like that. So it'll be different zaps that should funnel you to the right result. Let me just, I think I have one more required field. Just do this. Testing. Okay. Continue is going to test the action and see if it works. And it was successful and it's sent, and then I can just turn it on. And so now I have process complete that if the user goes ahead and submits a pitch, this is just one example for just me, and they answered all the questions, it'll just send them this email. Then I can create different zaps and or start setting up filters if I need to keep tailoring my responses based on what they're pitching or what they said. Some options could be, maybe I need to ask them in the form, without a name and email, they can already tell me their industry. And I can also make the template that they get back in the email for recommendations for a pitch template to use by the industry. So really by your end user or client telling you, hey, these are results I want, you'll challenge them to ask, okay, in order for me to build this logic using these tools, I need to know what we need to know from the user to get them to the right place. To get them the right output, I need the right inputs to put into the Zapier or to my tool of choice, video ask, etc. So I wanted to definitely leave you with that tool. And one more thing, because I know I'm coming on time, that I want to share with you is just a tool set. And I'm going to pull this up really quick of where you can find. I know we covered quite a bit of tools today. We kept it super high level, but there are another list of tools that you could use. And I want to, let me figure out a way to do this. What I could do is actually, I will send it with the follow-up from the conference, but this is, let me share this tab. There are these tools that I will send to you a link to. It's about No Code Essentials, tech tools. There's clubs and Slack channels for no code developers. I have so many no code lists and tools out there about no code lists, no code resources to find. Like there's also no code founders out there. A list of those people who are building really big startups with no code, and of course, no code tools on Product Hunt. And that's where you kind of find like the newest and latest products and SaaS that are no code too, to keep your tech stack sharp and see what's, trending or under development. So I would definitely share a link with that with Mac and the organizers, and maybe in the follow-up, how you can just have the research. Of course, you can just Google these things too, no code essentials, no code tech tools. So if you want to take a picture of it, it is online, because there's hundreds, right? It'd be so much for me to cover, but I want to at least cover some of the essentials, but also help you get the mindset to evaluate the best approach so that you can be a really strong developer and reach your goals. Thank you so much, everyone, for your time, and enjoy the rest of your conference.
All right, I appreciate it. So this is so dope. Does anybody have any questions? We got a couple minutes before we transition. We'll make some small talk real quick while we wait. That's so dope. So I wasn't even expecting you to cover like all these other tools. I was expecting you like to cover Nix Code, but that's how.
I'm gonna be too greedy.
So no, I was super dope that you covered those, and obviously we worked together in the past. I know that you know, obviously you know this space, and it's very evident that you know this space. So I think the key thing, what I'm seeing out there, and me and you are both seeing this from the startup space. Obviously, you know, now with startups, you know, this is like I'm seeing more and more incubators, accelerators, wanting, you know, founders to really, you know, leverage these tools to kind of,
Yeah.
you know, figure out if their MVP actually has legs, or just their company has legs. And now I'm seeing even more, and you already mentioned this, is that I'm starting to see a lot of energy in the enterprise. Like business units are like, yeah, we don't have time to wait for these developers. These developers are super busy, but we have some objectives, some key performance indicators that we need to be able to get under control, and we need certain applications to be in play. And I can't wait for these developers to do it. So, what are you seeing some of that as well around, like, from the enterprise? Or
Oh, absolutely. Enterprise was actually really first to do it. I think because you don't know on the front end that the platforms we've been on the apps with or on the web with, that they were built back in no code. But you know, that's where they also in low code, where they also maybe had a developers come in and give that 10 to 20% tweak and customization to make it feel unique. But yeah, it's definitely been bigger companies been on trend to use it, and now startups are like, well, we can use it too.
yeah, for sure. All right, well, cool. I really appreciate it. There's just a lot of people saying, "Hey, thank you, thank you." I think, and that's the main reason what I wanted to do. I think a lot of times when we think that we're hardcore developers, that, you know, you can't, these low code, no code tools. Because I think sometimes people think back Visual Basic, or they think back some real back in the day tools. These are different types of tools, very powerful. Allows you to give the ability of flexibility. You can incorporate your APIs that you're building. So I once again, I appreciate you, and thank you for presenting
Thank you
today.
for having me.